Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's candidate forum focusing on the candidates for Crawford County Sheriff. My name is Blake Benson. I'm with the Pittsburg Area Chamber of Commerce. We're the coordinators of tonight's forum. First of all, I want to issue a big thank you to our two candidates, Danny Smith and J.J. Carlinger, for your time in joining us, gentlemen. Thank you to those that are attending in person. We allowed each candidate to have 5 guests in attendance, so those are the folks sitting behind me. We know that whether it's live or at a later time, we know there are a number of people watching at home. We appreciate their interest as well. And of course, a huge thanks to the City of Pittsburgh for allowing us to hold these forums in this facility, because doing so just really expands our reach and allows so many more residents to hear directly from the candidates your vision for this office. As you'll see, we're taking our social distancing seriously. I was explaining to the two candidates that everyone remains masked up. When it's time for someone to speak, they'll be allowed to pull their mask down or take it off. But then regardless, or after that, we will ask that the candidates stay masked for the entire time, as will those in attendance tonight. Some housekeeping items. It's pretty easy, especially with two candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question. We'll start off with 2 minutes of opening statements. We drew numbers at the beginning of the evening. Mr. Carlinger drew the number 1, so he will start with his opening statement first. I will then ask the candidates 3 questions that they did receive in advance, and then we will transition into a section tonight where they will answer questions that were submitted by members of the public in advance. And we'll get to as many of those as our time will allow this evening. But again, gentlemen, we thank you for your time. And if there are no questions, then we will go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, Mr. Carlinger, you will give your opening statement first. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, it feels better already. Well, I just want to start off again by, Blake, thank you for all the effort that you and the Chamber put into putting this together. And thanks to the Police Department for allowing us to hold it here as well. Thanks to my opponent for agreeing to do this. It's a great opportunity for the people to hear our ideas that we have out there. And thanks to everyone that's out here, and to those who are watching at home or will watch it later. We know the Chiefs game's on too, so thank you for taking that into account as you choose to view us as well. My name's J.J. Carlinger, and I'm running for Crawford County Sheriff. I was born and raised right here in Crawford County. My entire family from right here in Crawford County. We've always been part of the community. In fact, there's a decent chance if you danced to polka in the last 50 years around this place that you might have danced to the Jimmy Carlinger Band. So that makes everyone a little bit part of my story, which is kind of special to me anyway. I'm married. My beautiful wife Angela is in the audience this evening. Appreciate her being here. I have a son named Cash. He's with his grandparents. My dad's birthday today, so happy birthday to Dad. I know they're at home watching this too. So this is an important election. It's an important moment for the citizens of Crawford County. This is the first time since the mid-90s since this has been contested. So it's the first time since the mid-90s that the people of Crawford County have really had more than one option of who they want to elect to represent them as sheriff. So as we look into that, I just ask that this evening, I'm going to try to speak about some of the ideas and plans that I'd like to put forth. Hopefully we get a chance to do that. If not, please go to my website, go to my social media post. You'll be able to find them quite easily. But I just want people to, as they go into the voting booth, to think about how long it's been since we've had a challenger and how long it could be till we have another one. So we have an opportunity for change. We have an opportunity to move forward and to get some different ideas. As I said, I certainly look forward this evening to being able to express some of those ideas with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlinger. I forgot to mention that to help you keep track of time, when you are 30 seconds away from your time being up, I'll show you a yellow card, and then when your time is up, I'll flash the dreaded red card. This is what Chris Wallace didn't have last week. Maybe the presidential debate would have gone a little better if he had had his red and yellow cards. So I forgot to mention that. Okay, Mr. Smith.
All right. Well, again, as my opponent said, I'd like to thank the Chamber for facilitating this along with the City of Pittsburgh. I think this is a great opportunity for both of us to speak about any of the issues that the citizens may have. My name is Danny Smith. I am the current sheriff of this county. I've been married for 25 years to a school teacher who's been in that line of work for 30 years. I got 2 kids. They're getting ready to graduate college. My entire career has been spent serving the citizens of this county. I started this career in 1995 as a dispatcher, working midnight shift. I did that for 3.5 years. I was promoted deputy sheriff. 11 years I spent patrolling the streets of this county in all 4 corners. I did that for 11 years. I was promoted to lieutenant in 2009 in special operations. And I did that for a few years until I was promoted to captain when Sheriff Dan Peake took over. And in that job, I was in charge of the jail and dispatch, the whole facilities, took care of supplies. It doesn't matter what it was facility, took care of that, among other duties. 2019, I was appointed sheriff, and I've served that role since then. I've been pretty lucky that I've been able to do my calling, and I enjoy it. This is my life, and I really look forward to this night and to be able to have the opportunity for both of us to speak about any of the issues and questions we might have.
Perfect. Thank you both. All right, so our first prepared question that the candidates received in advance. You covered a little bit about this in your opening statement, but if you will, please tell us about your experience in law enforcement and how that has prepared you to serve as Crawford County Sheriff. Mr. Smith.
Bounce back off. I got 2 minutes.
2
Okay.
minutes.
Again, I will say this. My experience in law enforcement spans over 25 years. I spent 11 years on patrol, 4 years in special operations, 6 years as captain, a year and a half as sheriff. During that time, I have gained crucial and fundamental knowledge of the operations of the sheriff's office. And along with that, I've also gained partnerships at the state and local level. And so with those partnerships, there are a lot of things that get done, especially when you have emergencies, natural disasters. I can tell you this right in the beginning of my tenure as sheriff, we had twin tornadoes come through here. And if it wasn't for our partnerships with the fire departments, Pittsburg PD, Highway Patrol, you name it, we wouldn't have been able to get the things done that we do. And we do that in and day out, and we've always done that. And so during those years, I've also got responsibilities, and during those responsibilities, I was 15 years as our team commander for our tactical team. 14 years, I was accident supervisor. So we, in the event that we had a bad accident, I'd come out and make sure, if it's a fatality accident, we have to come out, supervise that, go make death notifications, and all the things that you need to do. And that is just the tip of the iceberg of things that I've gained through my law enforcement experience. So I think with those roles, responsibilities, the vast training and experience, that makes my ability to make decisions as a leader of this department a lot easier because I've experienced those.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Carlinger.
I began my law enforcement career right here in Pittsburgh Police Department in 2008. I was hired on as an Officer 1, eventually promoted to Officer 2. At that point, I was able to take on some different roles that were varied more than just the patrol level. We were able to be the special response team, DARE instructor, Citizens Academy instructor, field training officer, and sort of the list goes on from there. But I went into coach for a short time and then came back over and was promoted to a narcotics investigator, one of the 3 founding members of the drug enforcement unit here, and incredibly proud of the progress that we were able to make and the impact that we were able to make in the community during that time. During that time also, I was able to receive training from some of the top law enforcement agencies in the world, the New York City Police Department, the Dallas Police Department, Los Angeles Police Department, Drug Enforcement Administration, United States Military, and many more really from there. Currently, I work part-time for the Girard Police Department as a patrol officer, and my other job, my full-time job, is with KVC Kansas. That's a a nonprofit organization that provides care for foster families and foster children. So I cover the entire southeast Kansas region for them. So I think one of the things that sets me apart is the fact that I have diversity in my experience. Really, it's as diverse as the community that we serve. So being in law enforcement, and certainly a leadership role, takes more than only a law enforcement. To be able to create partnerships, lasting partnerships with the departments that you work alongside and the community that you serve is incredibly important and a vital, necessary part of being a leader.
Okay, thank you both. All right, our next question will be answered first by Mr. Carlinger, so you can go ahead and leave the mask off for now. One of your roles as sheriff will be to manage your department's budget. Tell us about your fiscal and budgetary knowledge and experience.
Sure.
2 minutes.
Well, I am part of a ownership of a small business. So anytime you talk about fiscal responsibility and budget management, that's going to be something that you have to take care of. So whether it's onboarding new employees, training employees, outfitting them with whatever needs they have, payroll and taxes, that all obviously is rolled up into that. Beyond that, my role with KBC, I serve 8 counties. So the budget that I have to work with through them, I have to manage and create the budget and then make sure that we operate within those budgetary constraints. But really, this isn't about going in and cutting anything. It's not about going in and cutting up a budget and starting all over. It's about going into the budget that we have currently and making sure that we are using the money wisely, that we've been entrusted by the people to use. So that's what I'll do. If elected, go in, I'll take a good look at the budget. I'll make sure that we are using the funds in the most critical and impactful ways that can make the biggest difference in the community.
Okay, thank you. Same question, Mr. Smith.
Okay. I'll tell you this, June of 2018, when our fiscal clerk of 30 years was going to retire, and Sheriff Peak was talking about how we were going to fill that role, I asked him to take on that role. And I told him if eventually I was going to be responsible for this budget, I want to learn how to do it. So for a year and a half, I did our billing and our payroll on a $4 million budget. And the ability to learn that and do that to countless hours at home, of course, you can't get that done at the office with all the phones ringing. And so, I set the kitchen table, and that's when I would do the billing and the payroll. And my first year, I came under budget, and this year I'm projected to come under budget. And this was with a 70 employees, 100 inmates, a full kitchen staff. They're making 300 meals a day. There's training, building costs. I mean, we could go on and on, vehicle costs. And so these all come into play during the year. And with us right now, we're in a 22-year-old building. So every year, there's something we usually have to look at to keep that building going. And we just replaced the roof at the tune of $109,000. And sometimes those aren't expected. And so you have to be ready for those unexpected costs. And I think with me taking all those responsibilities and knowing exactly where every dime goes, and I know how to encode the bills and the payroll, and having that experience allows me to keep a good eye on the budget and be fiscally responsible with the taxpayers' money.
Okay, thank you both. Our third prepared question tonight will be answered first by Mr. Smith. And the question is this: during this time of civil unrest and distrust towards law enforcement in some areas, what is the biggest thing that you will do moving forward to bring people together? Mr. Smith, 2 minutes.
In terms of moving forward, a lot of it's going to keep doing what we do. We have the community's trust. You have to have open communications with your community. And if we're sensing any tension, or if we think something's going to happen within our community where we think there's going to be some distrust, we're certainly going to address that and have open dialogue with those community members. Our deputies, our correctional officers come to work every day, and their job is to treat people with dignity and respect, and that's what they do. They do a wonderful job. They do it every day. And quite honestly, in my year and a half, I have got more thank yous and compliments than I ever have complaints. But anytime we do have complaints, we take care of them. We do have, like I said, we have open dialogue, and it's something that you have to have that communication. And so along with that is training. We have annual training with the racial and bias policing, and we have to do that every year, and that's something we should be doing. And the other thing you should be doing is learning from the mistakes that we've seen across this country. We've seen a lot of tragedies and a lot of things that agencies have done wrong, and we have to learn from those mistakes and make sure that we don't do that here. And I trust that our deputies and correctional officers will continue to do the good job that they do, and we will, like I said, we will make sure we keep great relationship with anybody in the community.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Carlinger, same question.
So law enforcement is all about building trust. You build trust through building relationships and transparency. Mr. Smith said that he's built up a lot of trust in the community. I've been out in the community, and usually one of the first things I hear is that they didn't even know that he was the sheriff. So we need to do better at building relationships. And that's certainly something that I've always brought to the table, is getting out in the community and making sure that we bring people together in ways that we've never brought them together. And if you look at the plans that I have, the Citizens Advisory Board, the Teen Law Enforcement Experience, Citizens Academy, you'll be able to see that there are going to be active, proactive ways that we're going to reach out into the community and start building that trust and start building that transparency, because we're one critical incident away of experiencing some of the things that we've seen on TV, and we can't have that in this community. So we need to consistently work on building our relationships, not just every now and then, not just during election time, all the time. It has to be top priority. We have to earn the trust of the people back. We have to earn the trust of the partner agencies that we work with as well. But to be able to avoid those types of situations, it's key that we build the relationships and we build the trust.
Okay, thank you both. We'll now move into the section of our event tonight where we will ask questions that have been submitted by the public. And we were very adamant that any question has to be fair and applicable to both candidates. So any question we ask tonight will be applicable to both of you. We got a number of good questions, and we'll go through as many as we can in our time allowed tonight. Our first question from the public will be answered first by you, Mr. Carlinger. And the question is, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing the Sheriff's Department, and what specific actions would you take to remedy this? What do you see as the biggest challenge facing the Sheriff's Department, and what specific actions would you take to remedy this? 2 minutes.
I've been in every community in this county, and one of the biggest things I hear consistently is they don't feel they're being served correctly. They don't feel that they know the people that are serving them. So when I talk about building trust being a keystone of law enforcement, we can't do it without being out in the community in a bigger way, in a better way, and making sure that those relationships are built. So that is the foundation of it all. Once you have that, you can start building the other parts of it. So we need to focus in on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Same question. Mr. Smith.
So the one thing I've seen, and I will tell you this from a practical standpoint, and what we see is the biggest challenge we have is the mental health crisis for us. It is an issue that has been going on for over 10 years in the state of Kansas. And the biggest problem with that is it's turned our jails and our prisons into mental health hospitals. And the people that are going through these mental health crises are not getting the help that they need. And it is a challenge for the deputies that are going on the calls. It is a challenge for the correctional officers that are trying to treat these people, and they're not even treating them. I mean, it's basically housing them and trying to get a place for them to stay. And so there is no resources available for them. And that is one thing we've done that I think is going to help with this medication-assisted treatment program that we got. Is going to help with addiction treatment. It's going to help with some mental health issues. And what happens there is when we're getting the treatment there, it has a ripple effect, because if they get out of the jail, of controlled environment where we have resources to help them pay for their medications and get them therapy, and when they get out, they have those same resources and they still have that same therapy, and they can get a job, they can be clear-headed, they're not committing crimes, and if they're not committing crimes, then that's less victims that we have. And so if we can get those resources in regards to the mental health issues that we have, that is the biggest challenge we have in law enforcement right now in terms of what is going on constantly, and there's just no resources for us to get help for these people, and we end up trying to take care of them, and they have no business really getting involved in the criminal portion instead of getting help that they need, and that is really the biggest challenge that we've been facing.
Okay, thank you both. And we're going to talk more about mental health issues in a couple of questions here. Push these back just a little bit. All right, our next question will be answered first by you, Mr. Smith. I don't know if that's me or...
Yeah, I'm getting a little feedback.
I think it's me. One of the main responsibilities of the sheriff is to manage a large staff 24/7, 365 days a year. Please tell us about your experience in managing others. One of the main responsibilities is to manage a large staff year-round. So please tell us about your experience in managing others. Mr. Smith.
Well, again, that's something that a lot of people don't realize, that we have 70 members of the team at the sheriff's office. And so we have a 911 communication center, we have corrections, we have an admin staff, we have a cooking staff, we have deputies, and we are running 24/7. And so, you know, you have scheduling issues, you have issues with overtime, but the thing about that is if everybody is working together as a team, like I said, if somebody gets hurt or somebody is sick, you have to backfill those shifts because we have 24/7 patrol over this county, and we have somebody at the jail. And so a lot of it is trying to get everybody on the same page, to know what the mission is at the sheriff's office, and that we are trying to provide a service to the citizens, to the inmates, and I think we got a very good team over there, and they work together. And like I said, if somebody calls in sick and you call to get somebody, they will come in and fill those shifts. But you have different personalities, and you have conflicts, and it's something that you have to take care of those conflicts, and not everybody gets along all the time. And so when those issues come up, it's something that we address and try to get everybody taken care of. And again, it's a 24/7 round the clock, and that includes the facility itself too, of trying to get that taken care of with them. But I think it's definitely a team effort, and I think we've done a pretty good job of making sure everybody works together.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Same question, Mr. Carlinger.
Thank you. Well, I've served in management in several different areas, whether it be a small grocery store, or the current business that I own, shift supervisor here at the police department. But leadership is a lot more than just managing. It's not just talking the talk, it's walking the walk. And being willing to do whatever it is, whatever it takes to make sure that you get the outcome that you intend. I know Mr. Smith said they're all on the same page, but a lot of the deputies that I spoke with apparently aren't on that same page or on a different page. There's a lot of confusion that's going on, and that's something that I would intend to get everyone on the same page by going and making contact with each and every one of them and making sure that my vision is cast to them, that their vision is cast back to me, and that we can make sure that we find a way to be successful in everything that we do. We need to make an inroad somehow. We have to find a way. And if that means me working everything that I have to do to get that done, that's exactly what I'll do. So I would say once again, yeah, saying it is great, and then proving it though, it's a lot tougher. So we need to make sure that we do that. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Smith alluded to mental health issues, so I've got a two-part question related to mental health. And the first question you'll both get to answer, and then we'll ask the second part of it. First question is for you, Mr. Carlinger. While those with serious mental illness issues represent 4% of the general population, they represent 17% of those incarcerated in jail. These are national numbers. Nearly 72% of those with serious mental illness in jail also have a substance abuse disorder. Earlier this year, the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability Services issued recommendation as to the types of mental services that should be available to inmates, how much mental training should be provided to jail personnel, and mechanisms for jails and mental health centers to coordinate their services before inmates are released. Fortunately, that's not the question. Just trying to give some background, given that this is such a big issue, what role should the Crawford County Sheriff's Department play in addressing those with mental health issues? What role should the County Sheriff's Department play in addressing those with mental health issues? 2 minutes, Mr. Carpenter.
We certainly have to play a big role in it, because oftentimes, like you said, we're going to run into people who have mental health issues. That's unavoidable. So we have to make sure that our deputies have as much training as possible, our corrections officers have as much training as possible. We do it on a consistent basis, because you learn one thing in a week and then don't ever have it again for the rest of the year. You have to continually do that. In fact, if you look over my plans, I've said that I would have an expectation of an extra 20 hours of training per year above the 40 mandatory training hours, which part of that would consist of training to be in contact with those who have mental illness. So it's certainly a priority that we have to take care of, because no matter what, we're going to be faced with that priority, and we have to be able to overcome that. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, I know you already offered a lot in this area, so I'll just leave the same question to you to add anything you'd like.
Well, I have a lot of passion about this. And here's the deal. In the last 25 years of my career in law enforcement, I've seen advancements in technology, policies, you name it. And when it comes to mental health issues, they went backwards. We had over 1,250 beds back in the late 90s that were available. And I think now we're down to 200 beds statewide. It's an issue at the state level. They have a moratorium that's been going on for over 5 years now. And so I know the members of the Kansas Sheriff Association are doing the best they can to try to get something there, because the problem is being in a jail is not a place for somebody that has mental health issues. And we can get all the training we want in terms of that, but we need resource for somebody that is in crisis right now. And if somebody comes in at 12:30 at night, they shouldn't wait for 2, 3, 4 days to try to find a bed somewhere. And so that's an issue we're having. And so I really think with the resources that we have with this newest program, that I think we'll be able to get a little help in regards to that. But the state is really going to have to do something to step that up. But and like anything else, we will continue our training. We will continue to try to help the people in crisis best we can. And it's an issue that we just don't want those people to be locked up in a facility. Because the one problem we have with this is that the state statutes and what they require don't match up with the resources that should be available for us. And we shouldn't have to try to take somebody over to Missouri when there should be resources here. And so those resources need to be made available, and they need to be made available in Topeka.
Okay, thank you both. Mr. Smith, you'll answer first on part 2 of the question. The first part of the mental health question really dealt with inmates. Part 2 deals with mental health issues within the law enforcement community. The submitted question reads, it's a well-known fact that mental health issues, including depression and suicide, are increasingly prevalent in the law enforcement community. What steps would you take to reduce these issues within the Crawford County Sheriff's Department? What steps would you take to reduce these issues with law enforcement officers within the Crawford County Sheriff's Department?
That was for me,
Mr.
right?
Smith.
Yeah, so, the first thing is to identify and try to identify that. A lot of times law enforcement officers, they hide that, and they hide it pretty good. And a lot of times people don't know what was going on until it's too late, and then the suicide rate is skyrocketing. And so it's one of those things that, either another deputy has to maybe identify that so you can reach out and get that help. And that's the thing, if you can reach that person and get that help, but you also have that resources available for them to confidentially go do that, and you hope that they seek that help if they're needing it and they're not really trying to reach and tell anybody else. And so if we can recognize those signs, but when we have traumatic events happen and we do the critical incident stress debriefings, those do wonders. And so if we have something with a small child or a bad wreck or a homicide scene or something that's just devastating, we ask that those deputies get involved in a critical stress debriefing, and they do wonders. And I've been involved in several of them, and I've always walked out of there feeling better. But it is a stressful job. You get financial issues, you get marital issues. You know, it takes one bad incident, one bad wreck, you know, possibly to get an officer-involved shooting, and those things all build up, and unfortunately, you're seeing that across the country. But for us, it's going to make sure that we have the resources available, that we do get those identified and get them taken care of so they can get healed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Carlinger, same question.
Yeah, a lot of times, mental health and law enforcement is sort of a dirty word almost. No one wants to talk about it, but it's something that it is critical to talk about. It's something you have to get off your chest and have conversations with. A lot of times, you're talking with people who feel like it's a sign of weakness for them to admit that there is something that they're having an issue getting over. So having that conversation with them and making sure that you are reaching out to them. And sometimes it's the person that smiles the most is going through the most. So you can't just wait until an incident happens before you reach out. It's a consistency issue. You have to talk with them consistently, make sure they're doing good, have that open line of communication at all times, and make sure that they're comfortable to come in and have that conversation with you. One of the things that I would like to see, I know we have excellent care here in the area, but what I would like to see is, based off conversations I've had with deputies, with officers, is sometimes there's a certain amount of uncomfortability going to speak with someone who is right here that they may see on a call. So what I would like to see is an outside entity that they can go and really get things off their chest and feel more comfortable. So I think once they have that comfortability, they will be able to get it off their chest. They will be able to deal with whatever issue that they face a lot easier than feeling like they have to go talk with someone who maybe they feel like they're going to be judged later or see them on some other call. I think it's that issue that we have to overcome, is that comfortability issue of making sure that they feel good, that they can do that without any sort of repercussions.
Okay, thank you both. We know that's a sensitive issue and appreciate your thoughts. So our next question from the public will be answered first by you, Mr. Carlinger. Last year, Cherokee County passed a county resolution standing against red flag gun confiscation laws. What is your stance on red flag laws, and would you support a similar resolution in Crawford County? And just a little bit of background for those that may not be familiar with this, because I had to look this up today. There are state laws that authorize courts to issue a special type of protection order, allowing the police to temporarily confiscate firearms from those who are deemed by a judge to be a danger to themselves or to others. Often the request for the order will come from relatives or friends concerned about a loved one who may own guns and has expressed suicidal thoughts or discussed shooting people, or the authorities may also request an order. So that's just a little bit of background on the red flag laws. So again, the question is, what is your stance on red flag laws, and would you support a similar resolution in Crawford County? Mr. Carlinger.
The Constitution guarantees us our Second Amendment right. We take an oath to uphold that Constitution. When we violate that, we've had too many people that have shed blood for those rights, and we owe it to protect those rights. So yes, I would support signing that resolution. I'm a fervent defender of the Second Amendment, and I would absolutely sign that resolution.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carlinger. Same question, Mr. Smith.
I tell you what, when you take the oath as sheriff, that's what you say you're going to do, is you're going to support the Constitution of the United States. When it comes to Second Amendment rights, we live in a state where those rights are secure. I don't think it's necessary to sign that resolution. I've looked it over. I think the rights of the citizens and their guns and firearms are secure. I know the Kansas Sheriff Association doesn't support the red flag laws, and I know there's been some legislative attempts to try to get that passed, but I don't think that anybody's guns are in jeopardy of being taken. I'm certainly not going to come to your house and take your guns. We've had several conversations with people and talked about that, and the sheriff of this county is not going to come take your guns. It's just one of those, in that resolution, it's just one of those things that it just doesn't seem like a necessary thing to do at this point in time. It seems like it's kind of getting the cart before the horse, and I don't think that it's even going to be an issue with the red flag laws. I know there's some groups out there that would like to try to do that, but I don't think I wouldn't support any other gun laws or any kind of restrictions. But again, I support the Second Amendment rights, and I'm not going to come take your guns. I've spoke to several groups about that, but in regards to signing that resolution, I just don't think it's necessary at this time.
Okay, thank you both. Our next question will be answered first by Mr. Smith. It's been well documented that Crawford County has a higher than average rate of both property crime and drug abuse. If elected, what steps will you take to address these issues? What steps will you take to address the issues of property crime and drug use?
Absolutely. So what we're seeing right now, and again, in my entire career, you're starting to see second, third, fourth generation children and kids that grew up with, parents that had substance abuse orders, and really the property crime and a lot of the crimes that happen in this county, it all goes back to drugs. And so what we're doing right now that we've already implementing is with this MAT program, like I told you earlier, if we can have resources available for these inmates that can get help in a controlled environment, and it's at no cost to them, and then when they get out and get released, those same resources are available, the same medications, the same therapy. And we've seen some success already with that. At one point in time, we had 25 inmates that were taking advantage of this. But the number that really sticks out in my head is the 4 that got released and on their own initiative went and got help with that. And so if we can attack the substance abuse part and get them not to be committing the crimes, then those are less victims, and that's less crime that can be getting taken care of on that side. We've also added another detective to our detective vision, and so that is going to be helping with this and trying to attack that, because this is a statewide, and we had a meeting with the sheriffs the other day, and it's a statewide issue where crime is up statewide, and it's still over drugs. And so with doing that and a launching of our new initiative with basically a crime deterrent and crime solving, I think we're going to attack that from all sides and see if we can get that reduced. And it's just trying to be more proactive and get out there in the streets and try to get those issues all taken care of.
Okay. Mr. Carlinger.
So as the latest KBI crime report showed that not only are we grew 3 times more than the rest of the state in violent crimes, we have a 22% increase in property crimes and a 35% increase in vehicle thefts. So I realize he's been there for 25 years, and I certainly respect that. Any time that you're able to serve that long, you've earned my respect. But we've had a year, and during that year, our crime rates have skyrocketed. What I've heard is reactive, not proactive. We did things within the Drug Enforcement Unit that were proactive and were able to make an impact. We were able to raise the arrest rate over 100% based off our work that we did. So when you want to talk about proactivity, I have the experience with that. I can bring that to it. It also goes back to our Citizens Advisory Board. It goes back to our teen interaction program and interacting before the crimes, not waiting until something happens to react to it. I think that's the key. It's also making sure that the deputies are on vision with what you have to say. making sure that they're not taking calls from home. They're out, they're doing their jobs. We have some fantastic deputies, and if elected, I certainly look forward to working with them and inspiring them to do even better than they've already done. So that's, when it comes down to it, if you're gonna make an impact, you've got to be proactive, and we've been lacking that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Next question will be answered first by Mr. Carlinger. Question is this: law enforcement morale to this resident is at an all-time low nationwide. What are your plans to address any morale issues if you're elected Crawford County Sheriff? Mr. Carlinger.
Thank you. I've heard a lot about the morale. For some, it's fantastic. For many, it's not. We have to address it by treating everyone fairly, by making sure that everyone has the same opportunities to advance, the same opportunities to go to training, and ensuring that we're transparent not only with the community, but transparent within our own agency as well, making sure that we communicate the reason that we're making the decisions, so it doesn't feel like someone is being mistreated, overlooked intentionally or unintentionally. We have to be mindful of that at all times. Poor morale can certainly make an impact negatively in the community, and we have to avoid that. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Smith, same question.
Well, in terms of morale, we have some pretty good morale going right now. I've had several deputies come in. They're very happy with what's going on at the sheriff's office. You're always going to have a couple of people that aren't happy. If you have 70 people on a team, you're not going to keep everybody happy. When it comes to training, everybody has the opportunity to get as much training as they want. 40 hours is the minimum, but most every one of our deputies gets well over that and has the opportunity to get that. Of course, during the pandemic, that's affected training for everybody. It doesn't matter if it's corporate, if it's law enforcement. But the morale is something that if you're treating the deputies fair and they feel like they're getting their opportunities, then I think the morale is going to be good. But when there's there's very little room for advancement lots of times, and that's hard to keep morale going. And we have a 12.5-year average for years of service for deputies. If the morale's bad, it would not be that high. And so it's something that you always have to stay on top of, and you want to try to keep everybody happy. And it's just not the deputies, it's the correctional officers, it's the whole staff. You want to keep that morale going. And a lot of that is recognizing their service and their years of service and the hard work that they do, because they're working 24/7, and they are doing a spectacular job there. And this job, it's your life. And so they're subject to phone calls at 2 or 3 in the morning to get call-outs and doing those types of things. So, when it comes to that, it's making sure they're getting fair pay. They're getting opportunities to take off vacations. It's making sure they do get the training opportunities, which they all do. And I think right now we have a really good morale going, and everybody seems to be very happy.
Okay, thank you both. Hard to believe, but the evening is flying by, and we've got time for one more question from the general public. Will be answered first by you, Mr. Smith. And I'm just going to use this resident's verbiage as they sent it. So this is the way they worded it, not necessarily me. In a world where everyone is looking for the next lawsuit, what experience do you have to guard against and ensure the citizens of Crawford County won't be monetarily liable for suits, frivolous or not, brought against your administration if elected?
Well, and that's a tricky one, because here's the thing with, here we are with 70 employees. We have deputies out on the road. Their vehicles, they're driving. At the jail, it's making sure that inmates are getting taken care of. That's medically, that's trying to get the mental health part taken care of, getting them fed. So there's several things that you do. And the one thing that we have is legal-based guidelines in the jail. And so basically, those guidelines allow us to make sure that we're following where we should be in terms of inmates' rights, responsibilities, because the jail is your biggest liability in the county. And I understand Mr. Carlinger had a short law enforcement career, but he knows nothing about jail operations. And that is the biggest liability in the county. And it's something that I have experience with. I've managed it. I haven't had a lawsuit in the 1.5 years that I've been sheriff. and I hope that I don't have them. But it's one of those things that you have to make sure that there is training and that people are doing things that they're supposed to be doing. And if there's something you see that isn't, that you get that taken care of. But it's something that is always there. There's always that, that chance that something can happen. But if we can mitigate those risks, then we're saving the taxpayers money. And we have had lawsuits before where it costs us money for the legal, but they've been thrown out because we've done it right and we've documented those things and got that taken right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Same question, Mr. Carlinger.
Thank you. How do you safeguard against that? Well, policy is one thing you would do to do that, making sure that your policy is in place to make sure that everyone is on board with what's going on. Again, going as far as the jail goes, there's already set forth what was required of you. You need to follow this to the letter of the law. I know during Mr. Smith's time as jail administrator, there was an escape, so there was certainly something that was awry there that obviously needed to be addressed. That wasn't. And there's always going to be lawsuits, civil lawsuits at some point or another. You have to try to mitigate those by making sure that you're dealing with the public, that you are being respectful, that you're treating everyone fairly, and that you're treating everyone to the letter of the law and not going beyond what you are capable of. In addition to that, you need to make sure that you're treating your employees fairly. There's been lawsuits filed from employees of the sheriff's office, so we need to make sure as well that we treat those employees the same way, that we are legally based in everything that we do and ensure that that happens every single time.
Okay, thank you both. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Nope.
Okay, well now we will, to close out our event tonight, both candidates, Mr. Carlinger, you're going to go first. Both candidates will be allowed 2 minutes for your closing statements. Mr. Carlinger.
Thank you. So as I've said, we've had essentially the same administration for the last, since the mid-90s. And I believe that it's a potential that could just continue to carry on. We haven't had anyone run an opposition for, I think it was 93 or 96. And I think it's time, from what I've been out talking to the people, they're ready for a change. They're ready for a change in attitude, a change in ideas, and certainly ready for a change in the outcome. Our skyrocketing crime rates need to be fixed. I have plans in place that can fix it. You can find my plans on my website. You can find them on my social media. They're all over the place. They're easy to find. I urge you to please go and take a look at those and decide for yourself. Don't let the next election happen because there's no one else to vote for. Take a look at both candidates. Please compare our plans. Compare what you heard tonight. Give me a call. Give me an email. Whatever it happens to be, I'm more than happy to speak with each and every person and discuss it further. But I just appreciate this opportunity again. Thank you to Mr. Smith for taking part in this. I think it's a great thing. Anytime that we have a good election where there's people are able to make a decision, that's fantastic. That's working the way it's supposed to. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carlinger. Mr. Smith, closing statements.
Well, and I've said this before, I think I'm building on a strong foundation of law enforcement from my predecessors. When you work for Sheriff Sandy Horton for 18 years and Dan Peak for 7 years, those guys and many others in that department were my mentors. And they did a spectacular job. They taught me what it was to be professional, to be hardworking, to respect the public, respect this office. I've been doing that for 25 years in this line of work, serving the citizens of this county, put blood, sweat, and tears in this county, and I continue to do it. I love this job. It's my family. I have 155 years of combined experience with my command staff, and it takes a team of people to do that. This isn't just me. I can't do any of this without them, and they've done a great job. There's just no substitute for experience. And, I just think, and Mr. Carlinger might be the nicest guy in the world, but it is a big leap from going as a part-time officer at Girard PD to being the sheriff of Crawford County. And you have to have that knowledge. You got to know where you've been to know where you're going. And I want to continue to do what I've been doing. I've only been in this position for a year and a half, and we have secured $197,000 in grant money. We have started an addiction treatment program. We have done several good things. Our COVID response has been spectacular. Here we are, October 5th, we haven't had one case in our jail. So if we don't have an inmate getting sick and we don't have an inmate going to the hospital, then those are good things. They're not, and you also don't have the medical costs that go with that. So I would just ask that, and humbly ask for everybody's support and vote for me on November 3rd. And I appreciate their vote, and I want to continue to do what I'm doing.
I hope our audience members will help me give our candidates a round of applause. Gentlemen, thank you again for your time tonight and your willingness to serve the residents of Crawford County. For those that are watching at home tonight, we will have another forum at 7 o'clock that will focus on the candidates for Kansas House of Representatives, District 3. So we're going to take about a 10-minute break, do a little transition, and hope everybody at home will stick with us. Gentlemen, thank you again.
Anybody get the Chiefs score yet? Have we seen that?
Bet Larry's got it.
Somebody.
Yeah.